Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, as you may have heard, Nigeria and Jamaica marked 50 years of diplomatic relations in 2020. And to commemorate the occasion, the first direct flights from Lagos to Montego Bay took off in December last year, with both the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyeama, and the Jamaican High Commissioner to Nigeria, Esmond Reid, on board, as well as a host of Nigerian and Jamaican officials and business operators. It landed hours later in Montego Bay, a well-known holiday destination in Jamaica. It was supposed to be the start of a new historic trade relationship between Nigeria and Jamaica. So how have things progressed since then? Well, in a moment, we'll speak to the Jamaican High Commissioner in Nigeria, Esmond Reid. But first, here's Nigeria's Senate President Ahmed Lawan speaking during a visit to his office by the Jamaican High Commissioner.
We believe that such a relationship should also lead to the growth and development of trade between the two countries. We'll be very glad to have even more points from Nigeria to Jamaica, because this is one thing that will enhance trade between the two countries and, of course, develop also tourism. Our belief is, while we go to Jamaica, Nigerians going to Jamaica for tourism, for example, and increasing trade, we also appreciate to have more Jamaicans coming to Nigeria to see where some of these movements started from.
And that's the Nigerian President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, talking to the Jamaican High Commissioner in Nigeria. And I'm delighted to say that he is with me. We're talking about the blossoming relationship between Nigeria and Jamaica, the Jamaican High Commissioner to Nigeria, Esmond Reid. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, last year, Nigeria and Jamaica celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relations. How did you mark that milestone in a pandemic year?
Oh, in fact, we had a very extensive program planned prior to COVID stepping in, because the actual date of the establishment of diplomatic relations is the 29th of April. In fact, that took place in 1970. So we had hoped to cover many things, a public lecture, church service, different activities throughout the year. But sadly, we couldn't do it. But luckily, close to the time of the anniversary, it was possible for me and my staff to visit Minister Onyeama in his office, where I was able to hand over a letter from my Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator the Honorable Kamina Johnson-Smith, and he in turn handed over a letter to me to convey to her, marking the occasion. And so we did that, and then we later in the year decided that we would still proceed with the plans for that historic charter flight. So we have managed to do those two things, and the others will follow as conditions allow.
Well, I mean, that's a remarkable thing, actually, starting that flight, because, I mean, that's an inaugural flight. But,
Yes.
but I presume the aim is for there to be regular flights like that.
Indeed. We certainly hope that we will be able to make the flight sustainable as more people on both sides become aware of their presence and of the possibilities that such flights offer. It will be a tremendous opportunity.
But it hasn't actually taken off on a regular basis yet.
Not yet. The
Right.
next flight is scheduled towards the end of May, actually from the 24th of May to the 1st of June. And this one will allow for two-way movement. In the case of December, it was only a singular movement.
Right, movement from Nigeria to Jamaica.
Yes, but this one coming up will certainly offer two-way movement, and we are already seeing quite a strong level of interest on both sides, and we are encouraging more people to get on board, literally.
And on a bilateral level, what have both countries contributed to each other in recent times in terms of supporting each other's development objectives?
Oh, of course. Well, in the context of the bilateral relationship between Nigeria and Jamaica, there is what is known as a Nigeria-Jamaica Joint Commission. And we have had 3 meetings of the commission since its inception. And we were to have had the 4th meeting last year. Again, because of the pandemic, we have had to put it on hold. And we're hoping that it can take place this year. It's to be hosted in Abuja. And we are hoping that conditions will allow for that to happen. And this joint commission allows both countries to examine the full scope of the areas of cooperation, whether it's trade, economic development, tourism, investment, social engagement, the gamut of potential relations. So we have some elements which are still under discussion. For example, we are to conclude an air services agreement. We are to look at elements to deal with double taxation, various agreements looking at cooperation in education services. So there are many areas which have already been discussed, and certainly new areas which will come on stream. Of course, looking at how we have been able to cope during the COVID pandemic and looking at the future, how we will recover from this. Those are certainly topics which will form part of the conversation going forward.
And what's the level of trade between Nigeria and Jamaica? Because looking at the figures, trade looks absurdly small, doesn't it? Export, and mostly coming from Jamaica actually, export is only about $18 million worth of goods.
Yes, this is an area which we definitely need to strengthen. Considering our history and the fact that we consume similar products, especially in the area of food, and of course we have similar cultural orientation, we should have had a more robust level of trade. But the fact is, because prior to now, we never had direct air connections, and we still don't have direct maritime connections, so we have had to rely on movement of goods and people via third countries. And that has acted as a kind of brake on the opportunities for stronger trade relations. But certainly with this new thrust, with the direct charter flight, leisure flights, we are hoping that we will have more awareness on both sides, both from business people as well as from prospective tourists. So you'll have both trade in goods and in services picking up, and those figures you mentioned should be transformed positively.
And certainly in terms of Nigeria and Jamaica tourism, I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it, that Nigerians spend so much money, but most of the time they go to either the UK or America, and that's it. And I mean, British Airways is sagging at the seams with the number of people who take British Airways flights to the UK, to other parts of Europe, and to America. And yet the Caribbean, which by the way is my favorite holiday destination and preeminent amongst them, Jamaica, is just so beautiful and so adapted to what the Nigerians would actually want in a holiday.
Indeed. Again, given that the flights were not on offer before, and given the reality also that you would require visas to transit third countries to get there, those realities acted as a constraint to Nigerians being able to go in numbers.
But you're hoping that'll change?
Oh, it certainly will
Right.
change. Of course, they had started to go, but for weddings and for big events. But we expect that to mushroom into regular tourism activities.
And in terms of the historical relationship that goes back centuries, doesn't it?
400 years.
Many Jamaicans trace their ancestry to Nigeria, don't they?
Certainly. In fact, many Jamaicans refer to Africa in general as the motherland. And within the context of Africa being the motherland, many Jamaicans trace their roots to Nigeria and Ghana in particular, and certainly West Africa in the main. But other parts of Africa, of course, would form part of that ancestral bond. And that also provides potential for tourism, because you can imagine that many Jamaicans and people from the Caribbean in general would want to come and trace their roots. In fact, my eldest son, he did a DNA test and he discovered that he was 50% Nigerian. So that already shows you that there are many people who can explore their origins and then connect, past with the present.
Of course, Nigeria is a mix of ethnic groups, so the immediate curiosity is, and most Nigerians will probably say this to you, what part of Nigeria was his ancestry traced to?
I think it's somewhere in the Cross River area.
Right. It would make sense, wouldn't it? Because the most slaves,
yes,
or the most Africans who were taken from West Africa came from the Calabar area. They passed through the Calabar area. They weren't all from Calabar.
That's right.
But that was the route via which they went to the Atlantic, crossed the Atlantic.
Indeed.
And in terms of when Nigeria and Jamaica formally established diplomatic relations, you said that was in 1970, was it?
Yes.
And that was 10 years after Nigeria achieved independence. And when did Jamaica achieve independence?
We achieved independence 2 years after Nigeria, in 1962, on the 6th of August.
Right, so that was a long time coming there, wasn't it?
Well, yes, of course. It was during a period of self-determination for a number of countries in Africa, in the Caribbean. And at the time, we had many leaders who were very keen to have a path of independence, of an affirmation of who we were as a people, to break the bonds with the colonial heritage and to chart a path for ourselves, for the future, to chart our own destiny, so to speak.
And we talked about the history. I mean, it seemed as if it was going one way. In other words, the Jamaicans are tracing their ancestry here, but there's also been a re-export of the culture back to here, because of course reggae is preeminently Jamaican.
Yes.
And of course you've also got, all the other sort of music and cultural things and so on. But also the political side. All the inspiration a lot of the inspiration for independence and all that came from the likes of Marcus Garvey and all the rest of them, who were originally Jamaican.
Indeed, indeed. There has certainly been cross-fertilization of thought, of ideology, of political development on both sides. And Jamaica is indeed very proud to have contributed through our political leaders, through our intellectuals, through national heroes, as you mentioned, Marcus Garvey, who have inspired movements in Africa. And of course, we can't refrain from mentioning Bob Marley.
Absolutely.
And other leaders in reggae music who have inspired other musicians in Africa to develop new art forms.
Absolutely.
It's been phenomenal.
Fascinating, isn't it? Stay with us, High Commissioner. We want to talk with you some more. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with the Jamaican High Commissioner to Nigeria, Esmond Reid. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Onyeama. Now, Jamaica is being hailed as the next big thing for Nigerian tourists following the arrival of the first non-stop flight from Nigeria to Jamaica, which touched down in Montego Bay on December the 21st, 2020. The inaugural flight, with about 140 passengers on board, including the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyeama, was welcomed with 2 jet streams, creating a water arc as the plane cruised towards the terminal building. Jamaica could certainly use the extra tourists from Nigeria. The country's economy, which is tourism dependent, has been hit hard by the pandemic, and the usual droves of tourists from Europe and the US have stayed away as the country struggles through its latest trials, with life getting tougher every day for many Jamaicans. It's estimated that about 17% of the population live below the poverty line on just under $4 a day. And the Jamaican High Commissioner to Nigeria, Esmond Reid, is still with me in the studio. Thank you for staying with us, and don't feel bad, because Nigeria has even bigger poverty problems than Jamaica does. But my question to you is, how badly has the Jamaican economy been affected by COVID? Because, of course, the new year has not started well for most countries, particularly developing countries, because, and for you in particular, you're a tourist-driven economy, and your source markets are in the UK, the US, etc., and they have pretty much shut down as well, and the tourist traffic has been very slow indeed.
Yes, well, as you have highlighted, Jamaica, like many countries, has been significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And indeed, tourism represents the leading service area for Jamaica. Of course, prior to the pandemic, we were getting over 4 million tourists per year. Of course, now that the pandemic has struck, that number has dwindled significantly. But Jamaica, being very creative and being very resilient, we have sought very early after the pandemic struck to establish what is described as a resilient corridor. And with the help of many stakeholders in Jamaica, this corridor allowed for tourists to still come to the island within a safe space where workers and participants in the sector could interact safely with tourists, and it has been working quite successfully. Of course, we're not seeing the pre-2020 levels, but we're hoping that now that there are active vaccination programs ongoing globally and more confidence is returning at the global level, we will start to see an uptick in the numbers.
Because, of course, your peak season or seasons are usually summer and winter.
Exactly.
The winter is pretty much done, because, I mean, we're now entering spring in Europe and the US, and you were obviously hard hit by the tourist traffic in the winter time. Do you look towards the summer with optimism? Do you believe you can resume or rescue that season?
We are doing our best to do so. There is very active promotion in different source markets for persons to consider Jamaica as being ready and open to receive them. We are, of course, doing a lot of work on the ground to expand the programs for awareness of safety and health protocols.
Because, of course, there is a big question, and I don't mean to interrupt you there, over what you will require of tourists when they eventually start visiting Jamaica again. I'm actually very eager to come, hopefully over the summer. Will you, for instance, be introducing vaccine passports or some form of vaccine requirement? What's the Jamaican government's position on that? Because, for example, we heard today that the European Union is adopting a vaccine passport scheme to enable international travel this summer within Europe. So it's something that's obviously very important to them. And they are the bulk of your tourists going to Jamaica.
Yes, well, of course, each country or each region is free to develop and adapt.
Yeah, but what are you going to do?
But on our side, we have not taken a decision to have such a passport.
Right.
We want to have Jamaica being open to as many prospective tourists as possible. We certainly want people to be coming who have made sure to take the required precautions and who are not taking the pandemic to us to worsen
yes,
the situation.
Because I heard your I was watching your Minister of Tourism,
yes.
I believe, and he spoke about. He said that given the inequities that are inherent in the distribution of vaccines around the world,
yes.
with richer countries having greater access, that he expects that that's going to lead to some sort of unfair travel within the global community.
This is correct. We certainly want to have a level playing field for global travel, as we have championed over the years. So certainly it is for countries to have continued dialogue and to examine what works equitably and allows for smaller players as well as larger players in the global community to be able to come out of the pandemic and to use whatever is available to them, in our case tourism being a primary driver, to enable us to recover and to get back onto our path to development.
And as a way forward, I mean, could testing be it? Which is available in every country, unlike the vaccine, because I mean right now that's what's being used.
Yes.
If you were to travel to the UK or somewhere, you'd have to be tested before you leave, tested when you get there.
Yes, well, testing has been a feature for some time of the travel requirements, and I expect that will continue, because even with the vaccination programs, that does not prevent the virus from being spread. So the testing, of course, allows countries to measure and to monitor how the vaccine is circulating within the populations and to take corrective measures. So testing will be with us for some time, along with vaccination and any other health benefits that are developed, because it's an evolving situation. So we are learning more and more every day.
Absolutely. The good thing, I think, is that the Jamaican government appears to be quite proactive.
Yes.
And seems to be looking ahead. I understand that you've created something called Jamaica Cares,
Yes.
which is a suite of policies
Yes.
designed to do what exactly?
Well, these policies are certainly designed to ensure the health and safety of locals as well as others who come to our shores. They're designed to ensure that we overcome the pandemic as quickly as possible, that we have lessons learned through the experiences gained over the past year, and to ensure that we can come out of the pandemic better than we were before, with new avenues for trade and investment, for tourism, for economic cooperation in different areas. So indeed, it's showing how much we care for our own development as well as for our engagement with the rest of the world.
Right, we've got less than a minute left. I mean, in spite of all these glowing words, you've obviously had to deal with a slack, like all countries. I mean, Nigeria has had to deal with it, all the others have had to deal with a slack. I mean, in your case, a slack in tourism numbers. What has been your choice? What has been your way of dealing with it? Have you had to go to the international lenders, for example? Briefly, because we're out of time.
We have not yet resorted to global borrowing. We've sought to exercise domestic savings and creative measures to stay afloat, and we have benefited from the strong support of our partners internationally.
Okay, I want to thank you very much indeed, Esmond Reid, for taking the time to talk to us, and hopefully Nigeria-Jamaica relations will improve. The Jamaican High Commissioner there, Esmond Reid. Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja and Poland, bye-bye and thank you for watching. Thank you very much. Very good.
You're most